It's our time. It's our time.
Hey there, I'm Shub from North of Normal, and welcome to One Song, One Story. The concept is simple. Each guest brings a song that means something real to them, and we talk about the story behind it, their connection to the song, and what it means to them. Today, I'm joined by Jim Farfaglia, a music lover, a storyteller, and author of the upcoming book, One Song, One Story. I'm really excited for this one as Jim has brought a timeless classic. So settle in and let's see where this conversation takes us. Enjoy. Welcome to the One Song, One Story podcast, Jim Farfaglia. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Shub. How are you?
I'm very well. We are meeting twice in a week. Feel very blessed.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
And I'm going to start by asking you the same question that I did the other day, but it's a different day and different mood. If your day so far was a song, what would the title of that song be? And what would the vibe be?
Well, yeah. Thanks. I sort of knew this was coming, so I thought a little bit about it. So there's a song on a clear day you can see forever.
That song.
Do ya?
Yeah.
I know it by Barbra Streisand. I think it was a title song from one of her movies. So I live in upstate New York, which is notably cloudy because we live near a Great Lake. So it's a beautiful clear day today, which is a phenomenon here, especially in November. So there's a clarity to the outdoors, which I love. And then I see you clearly through the wonders of the internet. That's sort of what's connecting me to you. I see you very clearly.
Fantastic. One thing I also like to do, the start is find a song that connects us in some way, or a song that reminds me of you. And we've known each other a very short time, but the song I've chosen is very apt. It's a song by the Stereo MCs called Connected. Don't know whether you're familiar with that one.
No.
It's a pretty good song. And we were just chatting before. I mean, we've literally known each other 2 weeks. A random Google search brought up your name, let me know you were writing a book with the same title as the podcast. And we connected. And it's been beautiful. And I think we've discussed that, one of the things that really drew me to starting this in the first place is that feeling of connecting with people in my network on a different level about something I'm passionate about. But since we've connected, that feels like it's gone even deeper, not only in sharing our kind of mutual appreciation of music and this project, but spiraling into, you recommending connect with some of your network and potential guests for the show. And it's been fantastic. So thank you very much for that. And Connected seemed like a good song to choose that connects us.
I'm going to, as soon as we get off this podcast, I'm going to dial it up.
It's a good one. It's a foot tapper.
Good.
To put you on the spot, is there a song that comes to your mind at all that connects us?
Gosh, I guess I thought that's what the other question was, on a clear day. So I kind of mixed those two together.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that's a joy to me is to get to know someone really well, clearly, if you will. That's kind of a broad use of the word clearly, but
yeah,
getting to know you, our discussions, seeing our common goals, it feels like really good to know you as another person, a human being on this planet. So I would go with On a Clear Day.
Okay. Doubling up on that one. I like it.
Two for the price of one.
Yeah. Bargain. Now, by the time this episode comes out, there will already be another episode of you and I, because I felt we kind of needed to get that out of the way first, which was more about focusing on the book that you're writing, your process, and this wonderful piece of work you're building. So we covered quite a lot off in that session about you and your background, but today you've brought an amazing song with you, and I think I wanted to do give respect and honor your connection to that song by having our discussion in advance. But we never really digged into your musical education, your musical life. So I think before we get to the song choice, a great place I'd like to start is on that side of things. So I guess, when do you first remember music becoming a part of your life?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, the first thing would be I went away to sleepaway camp when I was a kid, overnight camp, and campfires are a big part of going to camp. And
Mm.
this was in the 60s. So those of your listeners that remember the 60s or that know about the 60s, that was a real folk singer, troubadour songs about humanity, time of period of time. And the counselors who were college age uh, would sing those songs to us kids. You know, if I had a hammer and 5,500 miles and where have all the flowers gone, blowing in the wind,
Oh,
so that's probably my earliest memory of noticing music as something beyond my day-to-day life or that transcended my day-to-day life.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And
The
of those songs are quite powerful songs about change. That's quite amazing music to be hearing as a
yeah.
young kid.
It's probably a little radical, because I'm in a very rural, upstate New York, conservative area. For those counselors to sing those songs to us kids is pretty radical. But some of us were listening and we took heed.
Great. Good musical education. And I guess, that was the music you probably absorbing at a very young age. What is your earliest memories of really falling in love with a song or a band or something like that?
Right. Okay. So now I'm back home, and I had an older sister who was 6 or 7 years older. So she was in college when I was before I even got into high school. And I remember I have this distinct memory of her being home from college on holiday vacation, and she was listening to the Mamas and Papas,
Mm.
which, again, I'm a big harmony person. I love harmony in life, and I love when people harmonize in music. And I remember her sitting on her bed. She was cross-legged. I think she might have been knitting or something, and she was singing along with the Mamas and Papas, sort of the fifth voice for that quartet of singers. And she looked so happy. And I just remember thinking, I want that. And of course, it didn't take me long to get it because I fell in love with their music. But it was seeing my older sister respond to music and me thinking, I want that in my life. And I saw the record player, I saw the album, so I saw something tangible that, if I save up enough money, I can have that too. And so that was sort of the beginning of me being passionate about music.
I mean, another great band to spark the interest. There's something very, very special about their music, and I've never really given it much thought, but their songs just have a sound and a feeling and an emotion. Like they're very common in, adverts and things like that still after all this time because they
Mhm,
make you feel so much. And
mhm.
I can never put my finger on it. It's the voices, it's
Yeah,
the melodies, but something about it
yeah,
is powerful.
yeah. Yeah, it's something about those four voices blending together. They actually talked about those that are critiques of music would say that when their four voices combined, it made like a unique voice that couldn't be distinguished individually, but together. And just a little backstory about them. The interesting thing about harmony, they were intertwined with each other's lives. A couple were married, but then there was an affair, and then there was a longing for one that couldn't be satisfied. So all this trauma was going on in their real life, but then they got together in front of the microphone and made this
Yeah.
harmony. It's pretty amazing.
Man, that's beautiful. That's kind of echoing the Fleetwood Mac story as well, that there was
Yeah.
so much fighting there, but when And when you listen to the
Same.
songs, they're kind of, Stevie Nicks is kind of writing about the relationship right next to him, but making the most amazing music.
What's it like to sing on stage next to somebody that you're? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That when bands get so close, the
Mm.
Beatles used to share a hotel room when they were poor. They would all sleep in the same hotel room. I mean, and you get incredibly close to people, I'm sure, when you're doing that.
Yeah. And then I always, certainly in my own experience, I always think about these teen years as when you really start feeling like I can choose my own music, and you start identifying with music and bands. What were you listening to in your teens?
Yeah. Well, this is a great point, by the way. And some of what I've done in my work is to study the development of the brain and how brain responds to music. We won't get into that in this podcast,
Wow.
but there is something about those teen years when the brain is going through an amazing transformation that those songs kind of get enveloped in in the brain. It's just really,
Mm.
really interesting. So rather than, I guess I'll start because the song that I chose, I think, is very important to that time period. But I'll go a little bit before that. I was really into bubblegum. They called it bubblegum music back then. I don't know if you know that term, but
No.
yeah, it's like if you can imagine what it would be about. It's pretty poppy, pretty joyful, sort of happiness. Still some longing in there, but those were my earliest songs that I connected to. I'm talking about 12, 13 years old. And
Mm.
I think it was because, I didn't have a particularly happy childhood. And so all of a sudden on this radio, there's this bouncy, happy music, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, and it's like, whoops, it's like, oh, I like that.
I love that song.
I can enjoy that. So the first records I bought, and I'm going way back, we're talking about the 45 vinyls. If your listeners know about those, the little individual songs,
Mm. Yeah.
those were my first purchases, were those songs.
Wow. And I would actually love to hear about the neuroscience lens, because I've always thought about that teenage era as being very much trying to form an identity, or finding music that you think aligned with the identity you wanted. And I kind of assumed that was, it could be like, are you trying to rebel against something and be more grown up, or are you trying to find something that you think you need? But I'd kind of love to hear you talk about the neuroscience lens of what you actually think is happening in that period of your life.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not a scientist, so please, any of your listeners, this is my interpretation,
Yeah.
and there's certainly ways that you can research it yourself as well. But I think music is one of the pillars that helps us create our sense of identity. If we're lucky enough to have music in our life, either live music or our own personal music or listening to music, because so much of that time period you're searching for who am I, right? Like,
Mm.
how do I define myself? And we look for role models. I think, who can I be like? Who do I want to be like? Who do I not want to be like? And music offers this great variety of who I could be like, and not just lyrically, I think musically as well. So when that brain is going through that work to develop a personality, a uniqueness, those songs can play a big part
Mm.
in figuring that out. The other thing that I find interesting, because when you get to be my age, people will say, I can't remember what I read in the newspaper yesterday, but a song from 45 years ago, I still have the lyrics in my head. I'll never forget those. And part of the reason why is I think the brain is actually developing its compartments, where we now know that different parts of our experience are stored in different parts of the brain. And so there's a place where music lyrics go, and they stay there. So yeah, I guess, is that enough for, I
That
don't think I can scientifically go any deeper than that,
that's
Chuck, but
great. No, it was probably a big ask anyway, but it's still really interesting, and it resonates so much, because I think for for me, and interesting you talk about an older sibling as well, because my older siblings were not only huge influences, but they were the introducers, like you said, of new music.
Mm,
And I kind of had one brother was listening to a mix of kind of Prince and James Brown on one side,
mm,
and then loads of amazing rock like Pink Floyd on the other side. And it was this musical mashup that I was being exposed to. But for me in my teens, or maybe just before teens, I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers on MTV, and it was a song called Give It Away, and something about their look, the sound. It was so far away from my life, but something chimed, and I went deep into it. You know, all their albums, started trying to dress like them. It felt like,
mm.
so this is me. And the memory side of things, yeah, I mean, I don't remember the lyrics, but I know a lot of the lyrics to that. And I even remember weird things like the first album I bought, the exact length it was and the number of tracks. And I don't hold much in my head, but somehow things like that stick, because they kind of they feel like sort of pivotal moments in development, even though you may not really know it at the time. You may just think, oh, I really like that music, but looking back, it was like, wow, that really gave me something, that really made me feel something.
Yeah. Um, I'm a writer, and so one of the things we talk about in the writing world is that the first couple books you write or the first collection of poems are often a reflection of who you admire as a writer or a poet. And then you eventually find your own voice. And I know you're a musician and a songwriter,
Yeah.
that those Red Hot Chili Peppers and all those influences you had maybe gave you the beginnings of where you could find yourself. So I think it's really pretty amazing what our singer-songwriters and our musicians do for us. They sort of open a road for us that maybe no one else could have.
Mm,
Because that's the power of music, I think, is that it transcends more traditional relationships.
yeah, yeah. And I have heard that too applied to music, and it makes so much sense. I think I am 46, and
Mm,
probably just
mm,
unbeknownst to me, I have only just got to the point where I am not trying to write things that maybe remind me of other artists that I like.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
it's taken a long time to get there,
yeah,
but it's like you've
yeah.
got to get it out your system.
Yeah, I think that's part of the human experience, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, or, it takes time. And one of the things we have to do is figure it out by seeing what other people do and sort of trying it on for size, if you will, and then
Yeah, yeah.
then figuring out who we are. So, yeah.
Yeah. And listen, you were talking about singer songwriters there and kind of opening doors for us. And that feels like a very nice time to jump into the song choice, because it is an incredible song you've brought with us today. But just before we do, a quick heads up for anyone tuning in for the first time. This isn't a deep dive into music theory. This show is about the stories behind songs and the ways that they become part of who we are. So, if you haven't heard the track we're about to explore, take a second to pause, give it a listen, and then come back. And I think you'll feel the conversation just hits a little deeper once the song's in your head. So, Jim Farfaglia, please tell us, what is the song that you brought with you today?
Yeah. So the song is "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother." And I want to point out that it's the Neil Diamond version
Mm,
of the song and not the Hollies. The Hollies had the big hit with it, if you will, but it was Neil Diamond's version that really resonated with me.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's an important distinction to make, and we can get into that later, but two, same song, two really, really different versions. So, yeah, I will certainly drop the right link in the comments to this so people can listen to the version that you're talking about. Always curious before we really dive in to understand the process. Maybe a little different in your case, but what was the process you went through to choose this song?
Yeah. Gosh, this is going to be a quick answer. I just knew it. I mean, So as your listeners know or will know, I'm writing a book on this very topic that your podcast is about. You know, name a song that's important to you and then tell the story of why. And I, I've known from the beginning of that process what my if someone were to ask me that, that would be my answer. Now you've asked me that, so I immediately knew that it was going to be that song because it always has been my song, and I'll explain why. But so
Brilliant.
no process at all.
That's good. I kind of love hearing that. I mean, for me, I think we've talked about on the previous edition, we've talked about me actually submitting my song choice for your book as well. And for me, totally instinctive choice. I knew what it was going to be. Some other guests wrestled with it. Some are yet to come on because they are still wrestling with what that choice is. And again, we've talked about that. The absolute scale and weight of the choice for some people is something that they have to wrestle with. So, but it's really interesting that it just came to you, and I can't wait to find out more about why. Can you take us back and set the scene for anyone listening to, if you remember when you first heard it, like who were you, where were you, what was happening in your world?
Yeah. Yep. So it's 1970. I'm 15 years old, 15. And the song, I think it came out in March of that year by the Hollies. But by July or August, Neil Diamond had put out an album. And one of the things, I don't follow popular music as well as I should today, but back in the 60s and 70s, people were covering each other's songs all the time.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been unusual for a song that was just a hit on the radio for someone to put it on their album or even release it as their own recordings. I had always been, not always, but I became a Neil Diamond fan before this particular album came out, but it was on this album. Like I said, it was probably August or September of 1970. So it's I was actually 14, ready to turn 15. And I heard the song on the album. And did you want me to set this where I am in physically
Please.
in
Yeah,
time?
that would be
Yeah.
great.
So I can tell you that too. And I don't always remember things like this, but I was in my bedroom. So I have an older brother. We shared a bedroom until he went away to college. So he was a senior in high school. I was a freshman or sophomore. And he was very active in school and sports. So he wasn't home much. And I was a bit of a loner and a bit of an recluse, not recluse, like introvert, I guess. And so I was in my bedroom listening to music, which I did almost every night after school. And I was listening, it was probably evening, and I was listening to the album that it came from. So the album is a Taproot manuscript by Neil Diamond. And I only mention it because, Neil has had a varied career and a lot of pop songs and a lot of glamour and glitter, I guess. But he went through a stage, and this was part of it, where I think he was introspective. And this album he really is dealing with human issues, racial issues, civil rights issues, equality issues. The album is about that. The album also stands out for me as a unit besides just the one song. And the other thing, again, I'm going to date myself with your listeners, but I'm on a vinyl album which has a side one and a side two, right? It's not a CD that plays or a song list from Spotify. It
Yeah.
was an album. So He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother ends side one. So it's the last song you hear before you turn your album over. And,
Mm.
as a kid, you know, there's an experience that happens when you hear the beginning, the middle, and end of something, and then you go on from it. Does that make sense? That it was it was actually extra powerful because it was the last song on that
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point. I think on another episode we were talking about the physical joy of playing something that the tactile experience of playing a record. We were also talking about the joy of listening to an album start to finish as a work of art. Uh, but I'd never quite thought about the importance of song order and what was going to be that last song on each side as well. That's quite a
Mm.
that's quite a big choice. Like, what is that one that you end with before you have to take it off and flip it? And that feels like a lovely song to end the first side with.
Yeah. 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 Uh, you know, let me go just a little deeper. So the song before that was so Neil Diamond did not write He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, but the song before it he wrote, and I think it's called oh, I apologize. It's either Gone Too Soon, but it's all it is it's really interesting, heavy, heavily orchestrated song, just naming famous people in the world, Gandhi and Jesus Christ and Muhammad Ali and famous writers, like name after name after name. That's the whole song, but
Yeah.
somehow it holds together. And then boom, he comes into He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. And if your listeners listen to it, you'll hear how he begins that song is almost like he takes a breath and then he starts the song. So that made it super powerful for me.
I love that. And do you remember, I guess one question, because I'm just struggling with the mental image in my mind. You're listening on vinyl. Are you listening in headphones or is it playing out speaker?
Yeah. Yeah. I never got headphones until my mother complained because I always sing to my records and I don't have a good singing voice. So no, I did not have headphones at that point. I probably didn't have it on very loud because it would have been later at night. I was in my bed. So I often that's how I went to sleep. My
Yeah,
brother and I actually, we would take turns trading albums that we would listen to fall asleep. And so it was very normal for me, very natural for me to listen to music as I went to sleep.
so cool. Right, mental image complete. Thank you for helping me out there. And again, always curious to know, do you remember what hit you first? Was it the lyrics? Was it the sound? Was it the energy, the feeling? Do you remember kind of how that song hit you?
Oh, yeah, that's a wonderful question. Yeah, it was the lyrics. There's this is a heart on your sleeve song. It's very easy to understand. This this word is about caring for other people, right? Being there to care for someone else. So there were specific lines and in fact this is where I think I'll jump into the song a little deeper. I don't want to jump ahead of you, but
Please do.
it was the first time I heard in a song anything about friendship or helping one another. And I'm not saying there weren't other songs that maybe were stating something like that, but it's the first time I heard it. Maybe it was being alone, maybe it was uh, you know the time of day that I heard it or whatever, but it was hearing those lyrics. So let me share a little more. One of the things that was troubling me as a kid was my sexuality. And I knew that I wasn't a normal boy, if and pardon the word normal, but in 1969
Yes.
in a 14-year-old kid's head. Um, and so I loved music, but all the songs I heard on the radio were about dating and falling in love and falling out of love and
Yeah.
this mystery of love that I could not get. I just couldn't understand it. And so, I wasn't going to give up on music because I love music in general. But then when I heard this song about I could be there for someone else, I mean, some of the lyrics, even the title of the song, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, which I think is almost biblical in sense, that we we will carry someone that needs to be carried.
Yeah.
For a while, I had a therapist that was helping me through some of these issues, and she had a picture on the wall. It was a rickety old bridge, and it had a picture of a young girl carrying what I assumed was her brother, a younger boy, across the bridge. And boy, that image stuck with me, and probably because of the song. I never thought of that, but that connection was probably to that song. But, so for the first time, why I picked this song is because I heard something in music that I could say, I could do that. I could make that work.
Wow. Wow. And how did that make you feel?
Whew, like I had a future, right? Because I didn't know where life was going. I mean, I couldn't see myself following the path that I think I was supposed to follow. Again, very different time in the world. I'm sure your listeners will understand that. But
Yeah.
I didn't think I had any other options. So all of a sudden, wow, I could I could be this I could be the narrator of the song. I could be the person who just says I can help you. So I felt first it was the first time that I felt joy. Is that the right way to say that? Because I remember we talked about those pop songs, the bubblegum songs that were
Mm.
joyful, but they were still about love and they were more happy sounding. This was words that I could buy into, that I thought I could do that. So I felt very positive. It's like I can do this. I can live in this world.
I mean, that is just, oh, I'm getting chills. Even in the largest scarf of all time, I'm getting chills. But it's beautiful. It's the power of music, and I think you touched on something really interesting. There is some songs. Maybe it's the way you listen to music, or maybe it's the reaction to different songs. Some songs you put yourself inside, and you almost feel that I could. For some of my favorite songs, I imagine myself singing them. I imagine myself performing them. Others, I kind of imagine myself watching it or listening to it. It's sometimes you're
Mm.
inside the song, sometimes you're outside, and it's really interesting that you almost were able to jump inside this song and inhabit it and think I could be that. Had a really powerful reaction on me, which is amazing, and kind of curious to know from what sounds like such a powerful, impactful first listen. How did the relationship evolve with that song? Or in the short term, was it something you just like listened to again and again and again, or how did that work?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what teenage person who loves a song doesn't listen to it 300 times, right?
Yeah,
Again, driving your mom and dad crazy. Right. And I wouldn't limit that to just the teen years. Whenever I get a song I love, I do tend to, but especially back then, because I didn't have much of a life then, really. I really was pretty much a loner and I was in my room a lot. So music, I did a lot of music. So I would play that song over and over and over again. But the other interesting thing that happened for me is that I started seeking out other songs that were related to that. And one of the things I was able to do in my personal love of music and in my research on music is 1969, 1970, 1971. Wow. I mean, this was, of course, Vietnam War and again, civil rights, women's rights. This great amount of music, and much of it was about being there for one another, helping one another, working through stuff. So He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother really opened up this genre of music, which became sort of I would say my favorite music throughout my life. I like lots of different kinds of music, but that singer songwriter, I'm talking Bob Dylan, James Taylor, Carole King,
yeah,
Simon and Garfunkel, those were the people that became my heroes. And it really started with that one song. So not only thankful for the song that opened up my life to me, but also my music to me.
yeah. Wow. And what an era. I think some of my all-time favorite music is from in and around that era,
Mm,
talking, James Brown, Sly Stone, Stevie
mm,
Wonder,
mm,
and you've got
mm.
you've got Jimi Hendrix. There's so much black music that's just coming to the fore. And then some of the names like Carole King you talked about there, it's got to be one of the richest eras, like late 60s and 70s, the most fertile period. Maybe that's my view because I just love it, but an era of experimentation, so
Uh-huh.
much new things happening and so much rich content, as you said, because there's so much going on in the world, so much social commentary that yeah,
Yeah.
you could spend a lifetime listening to that music. And something that I think you'll need to school our listeners on is in 1969, how do you go about finding related music? Because you don't do a Google search, you don't jump on Spotify. How did that work?
Yeah. Oh, that's another great question because one of my strongest memories, this was not about music, but it was about a book of poems that I had heard about and I wanted to find a copy of it and went to a bookstore and, but well, those are the options. What do they call them? Mortar and brick
Yeah,
stores. You went to a store to get your music. or you listen to it on the radio. So, I became a big radio listener. And back then, DJs had much more freedom to explore music that they probably wanted to share with their listeners. And so you find the DJs that lean toward that kind of music. I distinctly remember a DJ, this would never happen today, a DJ playing a new song. I think it was by Roberta Flack. It was a real good song by Roberta Flack. And he said, "That was a great song. Let's listen to it again." And he just played it a second time. It's like,
I love that.
that kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. So I just, again, I was not athletic. I wasn't smart. I shouldn't say it that way, but, school wasn't a big, strong suit for me. So music, I just spent my time listening to the radio, going to my local record store, which they were very kind to me as a kid to let me come in and just look through albums and singles. They even had a little record player there that you could test songs out to see if you liked it before you bought it. So, I just used my own curiosity and interest to find the songs that I needed to hear.
Yeah. And I think this came up with another guest where they were talking about tapes, but waiting by the tape player to record off the radio. And you're taking it back even further. And there is a work associated with that. And the reward, I imagine, is even sweeter when you've worked and you've dug and you've followed you've followed and connected the dots. And I imagine when you find a gem, it's even more rewarding than just, on Spotify. It's like, how about this? And you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. You really work to find out the next artist that's going to blow your mind.
Well, you bring up something that I recall is there's, remember your brain is developing as a teen, right? And so you're sort of figuring out what life is. And then, oh, I want to hear that song I can't afford to go down and buy the record, but I'll, come on the radio. I know it well. And you just sit there and you wait, and something happens to your body, your mind, your spirit, waiting for that song. And then you hear it and boom, I think it's stronger. And nothing against music today. I think it's wonderful that the availability of music, but there's also something about waiting that builds character and longing that builds a love for a song that maybe wouldn't come if it came instantly.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a fascinating perspective, because I guess the passivity in which we're able to consume music nowadays is a far cry from what you've just described there. It's a really interesting perspective.
One of the things I admire about you as a musician is the ability to make music. So I taught myself to play the piano because I wanted to feel what it was like to sing those songs. So it's taken me many years, and I would never perform in public like you, but to be able to play He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother on the piano.
Yeah.
And that, one of the things you prompted me with before this podcast was, take a listen to the song a few times if you haven't heard it for a while. And so to be able to play it on the piano and sing those words and feel the music through me, all of your listeners, if you don't play a musical instrument, I would encourage you to try, because music, it deepens the music for, I don't know, maybe you can speak more about that, Shub, but
when I started playing piano, I mean, I started teaching myself piano solely to write my own songs. I started trying to learn, I mean, I think I learned how to play Somewhere Over the Rainbow and Through the Grapevine, and the chords from that, I'm not a very complicated writer. The chords from that alone carried me for years, but I've never been fascinated by trying to play other people's songs. They're as beautiful as it is, and it's a kind of a feeling of achievement, I guess, when I'm like, no way, I'm playing Heard It Through the Grapevine. I don't get as much joy from it, because I guess I write pretty much in my head. I hear lyrics and melodies in my head, and then to be able to put that to music, that's where my joy comes from.
It's two different things. I think you're creating music, which is I've never tried to do that. I'm imitating songs that are already recorded, but both have benefits, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And curious to know, a lot of time has passed since, that first listen. And this song's been with you for many, many years. Did you find the meaning that you took from it or the enjoyment that you took from it evolved over time? And would you like to tell us a little bit about that journey?
Sure. Yeah. So I just hit 70 years old this year. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, well, I'm not sure if congratulations are in order, but if you know the song well, and if you don't, I'll just say a few of the lyrics. Toward the end of the song, he sings, "It's a long, long road from which there is no return. While we're on our way to there, why not share?" So, as a 15-year-old, that didn't mean much to me.
Mm,
It's a long, long road. But now I see that and I hear that. And of course, that reflects the Robert Frost poem, the road less traveled, the road not taken. I made choices in my life and you can't go back and change those choices. So I think the part that still gets me in the song, or that still gets me in a new way, that sort of like unlocks a new meaning for me in my heart, is that part. It's a long, long road from which there is no return. So, sort of as a mature man, I look back on that.
yeah, that's beautiful. Certainly more reflective on the lyrics. Now they're kind of resonating more. And just to follow that journey on a little more, just before we jumped on, you mentioned that before we joined this podcast, you had re-listened to it again just to let it come into your body. And you said you had quite a powerful experience. Could you tell me what it was like for you listening to it ahead of coming on to talk about it?
Yes, yes, and I thank you again for the urging to do that. So, once I learn a song on the piano, I'm less likely to go back to the recording and listen to it, because it becomes sort of my song, if you
Mm,
will, or the way I played on the piano. So, it's probably been at least 20 years since I've listened to that song. And this is what resonated with me. And again, I want to just go back to the sexuality thing really quickly, that I don't like labels and I wouldn't use the word gay to describe myself anymore, not because of a shift in attraction or whatever, but I think there's just so much stigma around gay that it's about the sex part. And I think it's about the emotional part. Emotionally, I am drawn to men. And I had a father who was a loving father, but not an emotionally available father. So I was craving male attention as a boy. And Neil Diamond, one of the things that's unique about Neil, if you listen to him, he often talks when he sings. Like, some of his lyrics are spoken. And so it's almost like he's talking to you. And so I think one of the things that really amazed me in listening to it from a 70-year-old perspective, thinking back as being a 15-year-old, was one of the things that I loved about that song was how he almost spoke it to me. And of course, I'm in bed by myself, you know, right close to the record player. He's
yeah,
whispering in my ear, talking in my ear. It felt very emotionally satisfying to hear Neil, sing that to me.
yeah,
So, um, I think, and your listeners listen to the song, toward the end of the song, he gets almost out of control. Like, he screams it almost the
mm,
last few lines. I hadn't noticed that before, and again, I think he was building to some, I'm obviously, for him to pick a song on an album that he didn't write, it had to be meaningful to him. He was feeling the immensity of that song, and I had forgotten how emotional he got in that song. So it struck me listening to it recently how much it affected me as a kid. Lyric wise, yes, but also emotionally, sensitively. Yeah.
yeah. And listening to it before the show, are you the Jim you are now reflecting, or does it some way put you back into that young body? And what were you feeling?
Yeah. Hmm. I think it was young Jim.
Mm,
I think it was young Jim, just because that's still in me. I mean, I still I still want that in my life, you know, being around other men who can be sensitive, not again, not sexually, just being around other men who aren't afraid to talk about their emotions and feelings. So that's still within me. And then sort of, you know, maybe embracing the young Jim, like, hey, you did all right. Because, there were a lot of times that I felt I didn't do right in my life. And I think I did the best I could back then. So I think I
Yeah.
was kind of giving that young Jim a hug.
Amazing. And Jim, we've talked previously. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in the divine force that is happening in this quantum space that we live in, such as I don't think it was coincidence that I found you on Google.
Mm.
Do you know, what's your view on this song coming into your life? Do you think it somehow found you? Do you think you somehow found it at a time where you actually needed to hear it?
Yeah, boy, another really good question. I don't want to be too dramatic here, but I think it did save my life. I think it did. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't see a place I could fit in. Every movie, every TV show, every song was about this certain way of being, right? And so it came into my life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm almost, I also thought, why did I buy that album? I mean, I don't think I owned any other Neil Diamond albums, so it wasn't like I was a collector of all his songs. So again, it, I was in that record store and I flip it over and you look on the back of the album and you see the names of the songs and I see Hey Heavy, He's My Brother. Maybe thinking, oh, maybe he does a different version than the Hollies or something. But why did I buy that album? You know,
Yeah.
it came to me when I needed it because it really directed my whole life. I then I took a career path that was all about helping other people,
Mm,
which of course in turns helps you when you
yeah.
help others.
It's so powerful. I mean, just hearing you say that, you reflect on, and we've talked about before when you ask songwriters, how do you write this? What were you thinking about? It's like, I don't know. It just came in and it wasn't much work, but they deliver these songs out there. And I know Neil Diamond didn't write this one. I don't think the Hollies wrote it either, right? It was someone else before them.
Yeah, I
But
I apologize. I don't have it. Was a songwriting duo
yeah,
of two people who wrote it,
I don't
but I
remember
don't
the
have their
name,
names.
but
I apologize.
it's fascinating just to think that I don't know how long it took. Maybe it was a day, maybe it was 5 minutes. This creation that they made just has such an important impact on people's lives. To say it saved your life, to say it set you on a path, and just one song can mean so much to people. It's quite mind blowing to think about, and they never get
Yes,
to
it
know.
is. Yeah, yeah. Unless they happen to be listening, if they're still alive, it'd be great if they could know that, right? Yeah.
In terms of the song itself, is there anything you particularly admire about the way it's put together?
Hmm. Well, I started out as a poet, and I still dabble in poetry a little bit, but you know, the other amazing thing is in a song of 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops, so much can be said. And if you look at the lyrics to this song, it's a clear picture of that girl carrying her little brother across the bridge.
Mm,
I mean, I just think lyrically, I admire it. Musically, I think musically it's a beautiful song, but it doesn't stand out to me as anything spectacular in that sense. But lyrically, one thing that I do know that I was thinking about, boy, I wish there was a better word other than brother because it's so gender specific. What's the word that we could say about I'll carry, you, no
yeah,
matter who you are?
yeah. Sibling wouldn't really fit
The,
either, would it?
no, no, and I think brotherhood has obviously a deeper meaning, but it kind of jars me a little bit with, you know,
Yeah,
shoot, I wish there was a better word for that. But I think in our language, we don't have a better word to talk about people
yeah, yeah.
without sometimes being gender specific.
True, and I think there is there's something about brother or something about the words in general that a lot of classic timeless songs have where they feel both so vague yet so specific at the same time. And I guess that's because they can be vague, but to the listener's ears, it sparks all this very individual interpretation because I feel like the lyrics are so simple yet so open for interpretation as well. Like they kind of feel like they could mean so much. And it might be an interesting time. I guess, you know, when I have guests on here, I never want to weigh in too much towards the start because it's your song, your story. But I do kind of do my research before we speak. And I do have my own thoughts as well. And I kind of thought it was very interesting why you picked the Neil Diamond version. And as I've said previously, I'll probably drop the Hollies version and the Neil Diamond version in because I think they both deserve a listen. And two,
Yes,
the
good idea.
same song, but two really different vibes. I have two really different reactions to them. Like the Hollies seems to be more uplifting, and I think the Hollies has probably been the one that's used so much in civil rights movements. It's probably better well known because it feels more universal and uplifting. The Neil Diamond one sounds a lot more personal, like it's slower. I think it might be a different key. It sounds like really someone that is carrying the weight of someone else. And it's fascinating how the two different versions throw up so much different emotion of the same song. And you almost listen to the lyrics differently and think different things. I find that really, really interesting.
You know, one of the reasons that I was thinking that the Hollies was we talking earlier in the podcast about harmony and how much we love harmony.
Mm,
The Hollies harmonized beautifully, but to me, the song is about one person carrying one other person. You know, he and my, right? You know, and remember for me, it was the male voice, the singular male voice, sort of talking to me that was appealing, that the Hollies was more joyous or uplifting. Yes, you're right, uplifting. So yeah, two very different takes on the same song.
yeah, absolutely. But somehow this version was the one that got you. And I guess it's really interesting your attachment to this Neil Diamond version. What do you feel the same set of emotions when you listen to the Hollies, or is it quite a different experience?
Very different, very different. You know, again, they beautiful harmonies, which I can appreciate, but it's almost like too poppy, too top 40, and which bothers me in a way. Like, you know, are you listening to the words you're singing? Do you really want to make a pop song out of this? And it gets nothing against the Hollies because they were so talented and their
Amazing.
harmonies were beautiful, are beautiful. But for this particular song, it did not work for me. Yeah, I can't really listen to it now. Because I did listen to it one time as I was doing research for today. Just thought I'd listen to it again. Yeah,
Yeah.
almost like big band, not big band, Broadway-ish, kind of like, yeah. Yeah. I don't want to bash the song. They had the bigger hit, by the way. They made it to the top 10. Neil Diamond released it and it only went to 20, I think. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean you can see why. I think the that sort of uplifting, the more uplifting feel, the more that sort of my take is that more universality to the message, which is why it's been associated and played with so many great moments. But the Neil Diamond version is different, but interesting because it's the one you needed to hear, not the Hollies one.
yeah.
Fantastic. Listen, Jim, I think we are starting to head towards the end of the conversation, but before we do, I'd love to ask, I know this song's been with you for many, many years, but looking back on what you've shared today about the song and your story and the memories, is there anything that stands out for you now or anything kind of new that's come up?
Well, I appreciate the conversation. I think for me, I'm always trying to figure myself out or, just take a personal check on how things are going for me. And this has been a huge piece of that for me to go back so far, to go back to that really different time of my life and think about it through that song. I'm very grateful that we connected and that you've started this podcast. It's like taking my, you didn't take my, we thought about these things at the same time, I think, but you took an idea that I had and you made that idea so different. And I appreciate that very much.
And I'm super grateful to you for coming on. I think to spend this time with you, and you've taken us on a journey. I have many beautiful pictures in my mind. You've taken us through different eras, a journey of your own life. So thank you so much for bringing this song and for bringing yourself so openly. It's been a pleasure to share this time with you. And just before we end, where can people find you, follow your work, and find out what you're up to?
Yeah, thank you. Pretty easy. You can spell my last name, which is a little difficult, but I have a website that's www.jimfarfaglia.com, and that'll take you to my written work and some of the blogs I've written about music, if you want to check those out. And I also have a Facebook page, which is the same, just my name.
Yeah, fantastic. Highly recommend you check that out. Jim Farfaglia, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Shub. I appreciate it.
It's our time. It's our time. It's our time.